Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for August 29th, 2020, recorded around 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, first of all, if we take a look here in the Gulf of Mexico, we're going to start by doing these now. We're going to start taking a look at what's kind of really going on out there. First of all, we have a complex of showers and thunderstorms in the Gulf of Mexico right now. And again, this is to the south and east of New Orleans and towards the west of Tampa Bay, Florida. And this whole big complex is kind of an upper level disturbance in the atmosphere. And this is going to be gradually pulling off towards the north and east here over the next few days. And again, this whole big clump here, it's not really rotating. We don't see any rotation, but we do see a lot of convective activity within very warm sea surface temperatures of right around 29 to 30 Celsius. So this is going to cause, obviously, some, showers and thunderstorms to kind of pop up. The diurnal cycle is obviously going to help that. But we can kind of see here that, we'll have to watch whether or not any of these, little thunderstorms can kind of consolidate, form a low-level center of circulation, etc. Now, the good news is that this is kind of moving pretty quickly and not going to be allowed to develop really in the Gulf of Mexico. We will have to watch this for development off the east coast of the United States. But again, this is going to bring showers and thunderstorms to the Florida Peninsula, the Panhandle. Basically, most of the southeastern United States is going to feel the impacts from this upper level disturbance. And that's all this is at the moment. It's an upper level disturbance. And again, you can kind of see the wind flow out in here, that it's generally all out of the same direction, which means there's nothing really kind of going on. Of course, if there was a low-level center of circulation, you'd want to see these wind barbs kind of turning in something like that. You would have wind barbs kind of feeding into it right there because it's a counterclockwise circulation. So you'd kind of get wind flow much in the sense like that. You don't have that here. So this remains an upper-level disturbance that's not rooted at the surface. So you have your surface winds that are all kind of scattered around. And of course, localized thunderstorms can contaminate, the wind direction with downbursts, etc. But by and large, this is not a low-level center of circulation, but lots of convective activity, lots of lightning. These little individual specks in here, this is all lightning. And those kind of represent your stronger thunderstorms in through here. A couple over the Florida Peninsula right now from the diurnal cycle. Just a big band of storminess coming across the southeast and across Florida. And that will kind of be the trend here over the next few days, more than likely. Continuing on for the rest of the Atlantic Basin, again, you can see our upper level disturbance right now that's kind of sitting out right here. The remnant circulation right now of Laura has actually kind of been almost demolished. It's probably sitting somewhere over here in the West Virginia, Pennsylvania region. That's going to continue to scoot on out here and really not do much. Again, this could translate into an extratropical cyclone, and that's probably what we're starting to see. This is going to bring some adverse conditions towards the northeast here, but generally this will not be undergoing any more tropical transitions over the next few days. I'm going to take a drink of water here. So, more than likely, this will not be undergoing any more tropical transitions over the next several days. And this will probably keep the Northeast from seeing any more tropical development for at least the time being. Out here in the Atlantic Basin right now, again, we have a couple of disturbances that we're going to be watching here over the next several days. First of all, we have a tropical wave approaching the Lesser Antilles right now. And this innocuous-looking wave, it's going to bring some showers and thunderstorms to portions of the Lesser Antilles, Barbados, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, etc., those areas. This tropical wave, while it doesn't look like much right now, is going to be coming out into an increasingly more favorable environment here in the Caribbean, where there is an isolated chance that this could go on to become a tropical cyclone in the Caribbean. And we saw this very much happen with the likes of Marco, that, Hurricane Marco kind of got its origins, from a wave off of Africa. It didn't develop all the way in through this vicinity. It did not develop at all. And then it finally started to consolidate and develop here near off the coast here of Central America and Belize. Then, of course, it kind of made its journey into the Gulf of Mexico and then across portions of Louisiana and Texas here after weakening. So, this wave could do something similar where it comes in here initially in an unfavorable environment, and then it finds a more favorable environment out in this general vicinity. The steering patterns, again, it's going to be hard to kind of determine what's going to happen beyond that point in time. This tropical wave isn't screaming either. It's moving at about 15 miles per hour or so. So it's moving fast enough to kind of limit significant organization and development, but not doing anything significant where it couldn't develop down here in the more favorable the Western Caribbean. Now we have another wave coming off. This next wave also has a shot of becoming a tropical cyclone. It too is going to move into the Caribbean again, where it could actually join forces with this little wave in here, and these two could kind of act as a merger and a catalyst to induce tropical cyclone development. And then our next little wave down here is in the works off the coast of Africa and near the Cabo Verde Islands. This wave has a 40% chance over the next 5 days, while it generally moves slower. The western and northern part of this wave right here is in an unfavorable environment, but this low rider kind of wave down here that's kind of all entangled in this monsoon trough, this southern part of it, is going to be moving westward and is going to find itself in a more favorable western Atlantic and central Atlantic over the next several days. So that is going to be something we're going to have to watch carefully. And we can see this here, first of all, our tropical wave approaching the Antilles with the shot of developing. Reminds me very much here of what Hurricane Marco did. Again, it kind of, was a weak wave in through this region, didn't develop, and then it kind of got pulled northward, obviously, where it gained tropical characteristics and became a hurricane in through here, and did something much like that. So, again, these waves, if they don't develop in this general vicinity, they're going to develop out in here, and that's going to be one crucial thing kind of going forward with time. This little area here, our 20% chance over the next 5 days. By the way, this has a 30% here over the next 5 days. This has a 20%, that's at 30, and this here is at 40. So this 20% wave that's coming off the coast, or not off the coast, but that's sitting right down here right now in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to translate north and eastward and eventually try to form out in this vicinity with warm water temperatures and high upper ocean heat content with relatively low shear. This is our wave coming off of or near the Cabo Verde Islands right now. And again, we'll have to watch this once it enters a more favorable Western Caribbean over the next several days or so. And then this wave coming off of Africa right now has a 40% chance over the next 5 days as this generally moves off towards the west here. And again, right now, my biggest concern for any rainfall, especially for the Antilles, the Lesser Antilles, etc., is going to come from this tropical wave. Again, this will not be a hurricane coming through the Lesser Antilles. If indeed it even is a tropical cyclone, which it more than likely won't be, again, the impacts are going to be the same pretty much. Heavy rainfall, gusty winds from time to time, but you're not going to see a hurricane come specifically from this wave right here. Again, this wave will be one to watch, but even that right now is a little too hard to determine when and if things are going to develop and where it's going to end up going and how strong it will be remains to be the big limiting factor, because we just don't have those answers right now. And until we have those answers and until we have a system that actually develops, it's pretty hard to really determine where things are really going to end up going and how strong they're going to be. But in general, all you really need to know right now is that this area becomes increasingly favorable over the next several days. This whole area is going to become favorable enough that tropical cyclone formation cannot be completely ruled out. And again, it wouldn't be surprising to see something develop in here. And again, considering the model biases, which we'll kind of take a look at later, that's one thing that we have to kind of expect is these model biases that don't develop tropical cyclones. that they don't develop it. They could develop here, so we're going to have to really watch that. And we know how the models did very poorly with Hannah and Laura and even Marco, so that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Now, again, this is why we still have to keep an eye on things. Just because we had a Category 4 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico doesn't mean all of a sudden the hurricane season is over. Unfortunately, we would like it to be that way, but unfortunately, Mother Nature does not work like that, and we still have a very high upper ocean heat content amount. This is basically what we're looking at here is these higher values here, these greens in through your dark reds. That is your higher upper ocean heat content in the oceanic, basically in your oceanic thermodynamic sense. And this allows for a higher amount of latent heat release potential and a lower potential for significant upwelling of cooler water as tropical cyclones come over them. So as you can see here in the Caribbean and southwestern Atlantic, we've been piling up this area. You remember where Hurricane Isaias, when it kind of came, generally in through this vicinity and up and through here. Well, now you can really see that this area has kind of built back in once again with very high upper ocean heat content values that is going to be basically favoring if anything comes into that region. And, I talked about this with Hurricane Laura, a couple months even before we had anything, that this area is going to be increasingly favorable for hurricane and tropical cyclone formation and maintenance and intensity if this upper ocean heat content persists, and we've seen that in the southwestern Atlantic. So again, all hurricanes need is a little bit of this upper ocean heat content, like what you see out here in the Cabo Verde Islands, and they can really take advantage of that. And just to kind of highlight your more favorable areas in through here, this is kind of where you have your most favorable environment. All the way through in here, basically everywhere within this red area has a very high upper ocean heat content amount. And this significantly enhances tropical cyclones to take advantage of that. Most of your energy is concentrated down here in the main development region in the Western Atlantic, with a secondary kind of maximum here in the Southwestern Atlantic, and then of course in the Gulf of Mexico, where yes, Laura did take out a chunk in through here. That's that kind of disturbed area in through here. But you notice what's kind of lurking on the eastern and western sides of it, especially in the western part of the Caribbean or the western part of the Gulf of Mexico. Very high upper ocean heat content numbers coupled with water temperatures that are still running 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. This really doesn't put much of a hamper in the Gulf of Mexico. And again, even through here, where you have your pockets of 30, 29, 30 Celsius, even a pocket here of 28, again, Laura came into somewhere right in through here. And again, the ocean does take a little bit of time to kind of wake up basically. And it takes a little bit of time. There's a lag period before you start to see it in the charts and everything else. But, basically it's been, a couple of days now, and we have really not seen much in these skin temperatures being affected. But the upper ocean heat content has definitely taken a dip. So if anything, that's some good news. But if we don't have anything coming in this region over the next couple of weeks, the next 2 to 3 weeks, basically it will take to rebound. If we don't have anything in that part of the Gulf of Mexico, we're going to have a problem come by October, where you typically get your Central American gyres to spin up tropical cyclones in this vicinity, and they move into the Gulf of Mexico. We saw this with Hurricane Michael back in 2018, and this certainly has a very symptomatic sign of problems right now if we don't have anything. But we can see, this is coming from tropicaltidbits.com, by the way, but we can see that there's other problems kind of brewing right now off the southeast coast right here and near Florida, with water temperatures 30 to 31 Celsius, the Bahamas, the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico. This whole area is still very warm at the very skin surface, and these upper ocean heat content numbers in here certainly reflect it, that this area is just still under the gun. The whole entire main development region is kind of ready to go. And again, we have not even reached the peak of the hurricane season yet. We still have about 10 days to the peak of the season. and we're not going to be over probably until November. Again, officially the hurricane season ends November 30th, so that is the day before December starts. So very important to understand that we still have a long way to go in the hurricane season. We still have a lot more chances for tropical cyclones to form even over the next week or so. Now, kind of what's going on out there right now? Well, first of all, not that much. And we can look at this here on the 850 millibar relative vorticity product from the Central University of Wisconsin website here. For reference, these reds and whites at your higher cyclonic spin at the 5,000 foot level. This little piece of energy right here is actually the remnants here, I believe, of a Hurricane Laura. That is the remnants of Laura. This is just a little impulse of activity over the Midwest right here, over Oklahoma and Texas. And this, believe it or not, is a tropical storm in the Eastern Pacific Basin. And we have not had, since we had a big uprise basically in the Eastern Pacific, and then that moved over to the Atlantic Basin, we've been under a suppressive phase of the Madden-Julian Oscillation in the Eastern Pacific, and that has really held down much of the tropical cyclone formation chances over that vicinity. So that is certainly some good news for the Baja, but you guys are still getting some rain, obviously, and some gusty winds with a dying remnant tropical cyclone. And over the Atlantic Basin, again, we have a very large energy piece here, very strung out. There's nothing consolidating, but we do see some areas and attempts at consolidation out here near Trinidad and Tobago, right out here off several hundred miles to the northeast of Barbados. And just general overall, unsettled weather right now continuing across the main developed region of the Atlantic Basin. And we can see that here in the visible satellite, again, that we just have a general area of pretty, rising air, pretty favorable conditions. But to the north, we have pretty hostile conditions with dry Saharan air moving off of Africa. And again, these Saharan air outbreaks, even in the peak of the season, are not unprecedented. And we've seen that even in the likes of 2017, 2019 with Dorian, came off during a sow outbreak. You get these things to happen, but where the intertropical convergence zone is and through here, it is fairly moist and relative humidity values are enough to support rising air. You see some of these. Yes, they're convectively anemic. They're not these strong tropical waves, but this one is a very strong tropical wave right here. This one has the best chance of developing, at least in the 5-day realm. And these two little systems will have a better chance once it enters the Western Caribbean in here, where it has a better chance of undergoing tropical cyclone formation and genesis. So again, just because we have Saharan air outbreaks doesn't mean that the tropical cyclones aren't going to be forming, and we still have a long way to go until the end of the season. So do not let your guard down and take this little bit of a lull here for granted, basically, and get your hurricane preparedness plans in place, because it's probably going to be a pretty rough remainder of the season. And we can kind of look at that here on the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the velocity potential at 200 millibars in the atmosphere. Basically, just to kind of simple this down, these reds and basically these kind of, purple, or not purple, but these reds and almost your pinks, that's your sinking air in the atmosphere that suppresses tropical cyclone formation, while your blues, purples in here, and kind of your, pinks, that indicates your rising air in the atmosphere. And we can really see that in the Atlantic Basin right now. This is basically valid as of today. This Madden-Julian Oscillation is kind of parked right over Africa, and that continues to kind of be parked over this general vicinity all the way up until about week 2. This is the week 2 extrapolated. This goes on all the way until September 12th. So we still have multiple days. Then the suppressed phase comes over, will move over the Atlantic and over Africa. Then this enhanced phase will kind of come over here once again. And again, we can see tropical cyclones that will form in a suppressed phase. We saw that with Isaias. We saw that with Tropical Depression 10. All it takes is really a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, a strong one, to induce rising air, and boom, there you go. But let the lesson kind of be set with Hurricane Laura. that it only takes one. And we're going to see multiple other tropical cyclones that will likely form over the next several days or so. And that's very important to kind of understand that as time goes on, we're only going to see more and more of these. You know, the season is far from over. We're going to have more hurricanes for sure. And it's only really a matter of time before the next big one gets going. So, I don't mean that to scare or hype anyone or whatever, but that's meant to serve to have you guys be the ones that are taking your precautions now to mitigate loss of life and mitigate property loss in the event of a tropical cyclone, whether it be a depression storm or hurricane or major hurricane coming towards your area, towards your neck of the woods. So let Hurricane Laura and Marco serve as two reminders to prepare really for what is likely to be a pretty busy peak of season. And we already saw that with Hurricane Laura. We're likely going to see more here over the next several days. Now we can kind of take a look at everything from the 12Z GFS. This is basically the 850 millibar relative vorticity product. Again, the spin in the atmosphere about 5,000 feet off the ground. And just for reference here, these darker colors, these darker reds, that's your higher cyclonic spin at the 5,000 foot level in the atmosphere. And we can really see here, we'll kind of step throughout time. Now again, you notice how this kind of wave impulse over here over the Gulf of Mexico isn't really picked up in the modeling, at least until about the next 2 days. And we start to get a tropical cyclone to form off the Carolina coast here. And this is only 48 hours out. This is by 7 a.m. Monday morning. And it appears that we have a tropical cyclone on the GFS forecast. Now, whether this happens or not, again, remains to be seen, but we do have a pretty large piece of energy right now in the Gulf of Mexico. That eventually kind of continues before weakening once again out here and just becomes a remnant circulation in the North Atlantic Basin, and that's throughout the next 5 days. But then you see these signs of something else trying to form here in the Gulf, or not in the Gulf, in the basically to the southeast here of the Cabo Verde Islands and off the coast here of Africa. And this tries to tighten up into a tropical cyclone. And for real quick here, I'm going to look here at the 500 millibar heights here. And again, what you have is a ridge of high pressure that's kind of extending all the way out here. But whatever system this is kind of breaking down this ridge. And we can kind of see that. But finally, we get the ridge to kind of build over top. This might be enough to kind of shove it further west. And again, this is looking beyond the 5-day specter here. But the bottom line is that we have something to potentially watch here over the next few days as another round of tropical cyclone genesis chances are probable across the Atlantic. And this is the European, the 850 vorticity. And again, a couple of things to really take note of. First of all, this is the disturbance. Well, we'll kind of back this up here. So this disturbance right now in the Gulf of Mexico, that's that disturbance that goes on to try to develop into a tropical cyclone. So that will kind of move out. We have our next wave approaching the Lesser Antilles now that moves into the Caribbean, and that tries to develop. We have another wave that kind of breaks off from the trough axis over here in near the Lesser Antilles. And this big elongated area right here that develops here into a tropical cyclone, or tries to, over the next couple of days. And again, these little stinky bits of vorticity in through here, although it looks really anemic on the modeling, doesn't necessarily do it complete justice. And you can never trust any little bit of vorticity in the Caribbean or in the Bahamas and Southwestern Atlantic this time of the year. And again, we know how the models have bias in developing tropical cyclones this year, especially because of what, the circumstances, that are kind of ongoing right now. That's kind of really limiting the aircraft availability that we have. The model data isn't easy to interpret. The conditions are generally marginal in terms of relative humidity. That could also be playing a factor into why the models aren't showing anything. So again, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence kind of why these models have a bias for not developing tropical cyclones this year. So again, just because the model doesn't show a hurricane hitting whatever area while that's good news, at least in the model realm, we know that they can't necessarily be trusted 100% because of the simple fact of the matter that, look at Laura, a lot of the modeling was picking up on Laura. They dropped it, and then Laura developed, and some models never had it become a hurricane. It became a Category 4, and the rest is history. So we know how this works. We played this rodeo, one too many times this year, and we were not born last night. So we know, accidental circumstances kind of, says that, right now the modeling is to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, both in the terms of showing tropical development and in terms of not showing tropical development. So you're kind of walking a real fine line here when interpreting the model guidance. But again, these models are guidance, not gospel, and do not live by them because they do not show the full story. All right. So I know this is probably a little bit shorter. I don't know how long we're running actually, but I know this is probably a little bit shorter than you're kind of used to. The last few days have been really hectic with work scheduling and everything else. So I do apologize for not being able to kind of, put up, the best quality over the last few days. I have today and tomorrow off. So, tomorrow I'll be back with another full scale, probably, longer than 20-minute video discussion tomorrow. And then of course, Monday back to work again. But we'll see, how that kind of all plays out. So I do thank each and every one of you for your continued support. If you guys wouldn't mind, I do have a poll that is running right now. Since I hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, obviously I'm eligible for monetization on the channel. This monetization would be used for, funds like putting with the hurricane cameras that we have developed. And if you guys aren't aware of that, I'll put a card in the upper right-hand corner of today's video right now, kind of showing what we do with these hurricane cameras and what they're made for. If you're aware of Mark Sudduth and the work that he does, it is almost like his, but not exactly identical. We're putting our little spin into this to make it, not identical like his. But this would also help fund for college and to continue my support kind of going forward and studying meteorology in college and helping to provide for that. So if you guys, if putting ads on these videos is okay with you, then obviously click yes. But if not, then you can click no, keep them out. And that will kind of let me know whether or not you guys are okay with it or not okay with it. All right, that will really help me out. And I do appreciate each and every one of you for your continued support. All right, with that being said, thank you all for watching today's video. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again tomorrow. I'll talk to you guys some more tomorrow.